Joining me live now is the Home Affairs and Immigration Minister Tony Burke. Thanks for joining us on Politics Now, Tony Burke. I might start with this cyber security breach I want to ask you about at major super firms that's caused some people some concern, talk of thousands of Australians having their details perhaps sold on the dark web. James Patterson, your counterpart, he's accused you of being silent on this, and he says it's because Wayne Swan chairs CBUS, the Labor Party president. What is the government doing about this, and have the super funds done enough?
Yeah, I think Mr Patterson would do well to catch up to some of the changes that have been made over the last couple of years. We now have Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness as the cybersecurity coordinator. And so she moves in whenever one of these incidents happens and manages the coordination and manages the public messaging as well. Lieutenant General McGuinness and I talk and communicate each other pretty much daily. We had a very in-detail briefing on this yesterday. But, you know, there's something that Mr Patterson seems obsessed with, which he judges everything in terms of national security by how much media you do. I think the bigger issue is what you're doing in terms of safety.
Well, tell me then, Tony Burke, what are you doing, and have the super funds done enough? Okay,
so two things. First of all, every business in Australia needs to be constantly upgrading its security, and any time that any business is attacked, then you need to make sure that you're upgrading. And the coordinator is happy with the work that is happening with the super funds in terms of the upgrades that will be happening as a result of this specific attack. In terms of the number of people who have lost money at this point, and obviously there's a process for them to be able to have their funds reinstated, but at the moment we are talking about 4 people. That's where that's at. And the work in terms of upgrading security levels, the last thing you do whenever there's an attack of this nature is talk publicly about the nature of the breach and the nature of any vulnerabilities that might be there. The proper thing to happen is that the coordinator deals with all of the funds and makes sure that everything that needs to happen to be able to protect people's money, to protect people's details, is occurring. And from all the briefings that I've been having and the conversations I've had with the coordinator, I'm 100% satisfied that the funds are cooperating with the coordinator and what needs to be done to be able to protect people's money and protect people's security is occurring.
Well, that's good news. Now, let's talk about the People's Forum. Were you shocked by the show of hands? You were there I saw you at the event, of the people who said they were struggling. Is that an indictment on your government and its management of the economy?
Oh, it's the experience in Australia is the moment global, and can I say of most countries in the world, the moment global inflation hit, it made life harder for people, and there's never been a moment where this government's pretended otherwise. What we've made clear is that in dealing with global inflation, in dealing with cost of living, we had to make sure that we provided people with targeted relief that didn't itself add to inflation. Now, a whole lot of the different things we've done, the opposition voted against pretty much all of them, and their argument was always, oh no, but you know, if you improve wages, that'll have an impact on inflation. If you provide energy bill relief, it'll have an impact on inflation. Well, look what's happened. As inflation's been falling, going from having a 6 in front of it under them to now having a 2 in front of it, at the same time wages have been rising. And those lines crossed during this term between what was happening with inflation and what was happening with wages. So for the last 5 quarters, we've had real wage growth.
Sure, but Tony Burke, just briefly, were you shocked by the show of hands, that there were that many hands up?
No, not at all. This is what the government's been talking about. The government's been talking about the whole term about the fact that people are under pressure and we need to act to help them with that pressure and to make sure that they can find their way through.
Let's move on. The immigration question reared itself in the People's Forum last night and in the door knock I did in the seat of Parramatta on Sunday with your candidate, Andrew Charlton. People are concerned about the fact that the government has allowed the net migration of Australia of 1,060,000 people, according to the ABS, between September quarter 2022 and September quarter 2024. And based on the budget papers, we're getting 1.8 million people in over 5 years in terms of net migration. Why is this happening? Why can't you get a handle on this and make it more a balanced approach?
I'll deal with it in two parts. First of all, those figures that you've referred to in the budget papers show net overseas migration falling and consistently falling. The latest figures we have year on year are a 31% fall. So the government's been acting to be able to make sure that those numbers are sustainable again. And, you know, with what the most significant of those actions, which was to act on student visas, Peter Dutton voted against our legislation and voted for the number of students coming to be unlimited. That was their position, what he did in the Parliament. Why was there a large number at the start of the term? The answer is very simple, and the Prime Minister referred to it in the debate last night, which is the moment lockdown's finished, a whole lot of people, including Australian citizens, returned to Australia. Overseas students, where normally you only got the first years arriving and adding to the figures, because everyone had to go home, you had the first year and the second year and the third year students all starting to arrive at once, and then you've got a longer period, a lag, before people start to leave the country again. And it's a net figure, so it's arrivals versus departures. So that's why you end up at the start of the period with significantly higher numbers than you would otherwise have.
But has it made the housing crisis worse?
We do get those numbers down to targeted, sustainable levels.
Has it made the housing crisis worse, Tony Burke?
Look, my concern, and one of the reasons that we've targeted student visas, is that this is the one. Yes, it's an important industry for Australia, but it's the one area where, for each additional customer, if you want, you need to make sure you've got housing for them. And the universities in particular hadn't been keeping up with the student accommodation. So there has been some level of overlap there. But if you attack the whole immigration system, you'll actually make the housing situation worse. The numbers that Peter Dutton's referred to today, now he's referred to 100,000 straight away in a reduction. Now the budget papers that you referred to have over the next year those numbers coming down by 120,000. So I presume Peter Dutton isn't saying he's doing less than that. I presume he's saying his actual figure year on year would be 220,000. Now, if that's a reduction you're trying to do, you're either going to be stopping us getting the skills that we need to build houses, or stopping us getting the skills we need to be able to run aged care, or in a place like Cairns, where you did the report from just a moment ago while I was waiting to come on, think what would happen if you had a massive immediate cut to working holiday there. The hospitality and tourism industry would be smashed.
All right.
Smashed in a place like Cairns.
Almost out of time, Tony Burke. A couple of things I want to ask you about. Prior to the election, you attracted controversy by shepherding through 12,000 people in 25 citizenship ceremonies. You were holding these ceremonies at Sydney Olympic Park. The argument was this allowed people to vote for you, and you were inviting marginal seat MPs Andrew Charlton and Jerome Laxale. This is what one of your bureaucrats told a parliamentary committee, quote, "The minister asked us to schedule additional ceremonies to address people waiting for a ceremony." This is a bit red hot, isn't it?
Well, people were waiting. Like, the only reason there were that many citizens that many people ready to become citizens is because we had a backlog. Like, the people had to be coming from somewhere. There was a huge backlog of people. And if you have a look at a couple of the councils, you know, one of those ceremonies at Sydney Olympic Park only dealt with one council. Like, we had more than 750 people at each of those. One of them, everybody there was from just one council.
But this was partly political, wasn't it?
They can explain why they were holding back. Oh, sorry, I don't mean to speak over you. I was mid-sentence when you came in. You go.
No, but I'm just saying, no, but I'm just trying to press the point here. This was partly political. You can admit that, can't you? This doesn't hurt the Labor cause doing this.
I've been doing citizenship ceremonies as long as I've been minister, right back to when I was minister in 2013. This is the first time I've ever seen people try to politicise the ceremonies. Labor marginal seat members turned up. Yeah, that's true. Liberals were invited too. It's just the Adelaide was the only place where one of the Liberals turned up. When that Liberal turned up, got to make a speech, was completely invited in. An independent turned up, got to make a speech. Sometimes we had a Liberal mayor there. When we had them, they got to make a speech. You know, come to any of the citizenship ceremonies, they are the most non-partisan, happy, proud to be Australian events you will ever go to.
All right, Mr. Burke, I just want to get this last question in, if you don't mind, just briefly. On the issue of work from home, you're a former IR minister. It's becoming quite clear, this is a major issue for a lot of people. But there's been criticism you went too far as IR minister in terms of workplace reforms, in terms of its effect on productivity. And it's interesting, the New South Wales Premier Chris Minns's preferred position is for all his 300,000 public servants to get into the workplace. Has this gone too far? Has it been bad for CBDs?
Well, remember two things. Chris Minns isn't breaching the laws that we put in place with any of the decisions that he's taking. And also, he's not saying every single day, still acknowledging a level of flexibility there. I mean, you referred earlier, and I saw the package you did when you were in Parramatta. One of the interesting things there was the number of people who were at home when you went out door knocking with Andrew Charlton. And this is where, for so many workers now, work from home isn't an added convenience. It determines whether or not they can be in the workforce at all. And if you're one of the people who can't work from home, and a lot of people in my part of Sydney can't, the nature of their job, one thing they don't want is for everybody who's currently working from home suddenly turning up and having congestion on the roads. So, the thing that I am stunned by is that Peter Dutton didn't know this, that he somehow didn't know how modern families are managing work and managing the different pressures they're under. It's good for productivity, and it also is really good for participation. For a lot of people, if work from home's not available, then those are entire days where they simply otherwise would not be able to work.
Tony Burke, thanks so much for your time.
Great to be back.